My hands were a little sweaty, and it wasn't just the cheap, worn leather of my shooting gloves. It was always like this when I came to the range, especially this particular one. It was mostly men, usually older, usually white, and they all seemed to know each other. I was just me, Sarah, a black woman who'd found an unexpected peace in the loud crack of a firearm and the quiet satisfaction of a tight grouping on a paper target. I'd started shooting a couple of years back. Not because I was some action hero, Lord. No. I'd had a scare, a late-night walk home from the bus stop, footsteps too close behind me, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. Nothing happened, thank God, but the fear, it stuck to me like burrs. A friend, a kind, no-nonsense woman named Maria, suggested a self-defense class, and part of that was an introduction to firearms. I was terrified at first. The noise, the power. But Maria, patient as a saint, showed me the safety, the stance, the breathing. And slowly, very slowly, I started to get it. It wasn't about aggression. It was about control, precision. About knowing I could protect myself if I ever, God forbid, needed to, so I kept at it. It became my quiet hobby, my stress reliever. Most times, people at the range were fine. A nod here, a polite, lane clear, there. But sometimes you get that look, the one that sizes you up and finds you wanting before you've even unzipped your gun bag. Today was one of those sometimes. I walked in, my range bag over my shoulder, my ear protectors already around my neck. There was a group of 3 men hogging the counter, laughing loudly about something. They looked like they'd stepped right out of a good old boys catalog. Faded jeans, baseball caps, t-shirts stretched over comfortable bellies. As I approached to sign in, their laughter kind of trailed off, not in a polite way, more like a, "What's she doing here?" kind of way. I felt my shoulders tense up. "Just signing in for lane 7, I said to the guy behind the counter, trying to keep my voice even. He was a young fella, barely looked old enough to shave, and he just grunted and pushed the logbook towards me. As I signed, I could hear them, not talking to me, but about me. "Well, looky here," one of them drawled, his voice carrying easily. "Lost, little lady?" A chuckle from another. "Probably thinks it's like in the movies, point and shoot." The third one, the biggest of the lot, just snorted, a sound full of dismissal. My face burned. I wanted to turn around, to say something sharp, to tell them I had every right to be there, that my money was as good as theirs. But what was the point? They weren't looking for a conversation. They were looking to feel big by making someone else feel small. And today, I was that someone. I just finished signing, picked up my target papers and walked towards my lane, their snickers following me like annoying little gnats. My hands were definitely shaking a bit now. Not with fear, not really. More with a simmering anger, a deep-seated frustration that this was still a thing. That in this day and age, a woman, a black woman, still had to prove she belonged in spaces that weren't traditionally hers. I got to lane 7. Took a deep breath. "Okay, Sarah, focus. You're here to practice, not to impress anyone, especially not them." I laid out my gear methodically. My Springfield XD9, a reliable, straightforward pistol, my box of 9mm rounds, my staple gun for the target, my eye protection. Each movement was deliberate, a small ritual to calm my nerves. Could still hear them, a low murmur of voices punctuated by more laughter. I didn't look, but I could feel their eyes on my back. It was like a physical weight. "Reckon she knows which end the bullet comes out of?" one of them said, a little louder this time, clearly wanting me to hear. My jaw tightened. I stapled my first target to the carrier with a bit more force than necessary, sent it zipping down the lane, 10 yards, a good starting distance. I loaded my first magazine. The click of each round sliding into place was a small, satisfying sound in the midst of their noise. I could feel my heart thumping, a mix of nerves and defiance. Just breathe, Sarah, like Maria taught you. Breathe in confidence. Breathe out the bull. I put on my ear protectors, then my safety glasses. The world went a little quieter, more muffled. Good. It helped me shut out their voices, at least a bit. I picked up my Springfield. The cold steel felt familiar and reassuring in my hands. I took my stance. Feet shoulder-width apart, a slight bend in the knees. Two-handed grip, firm but not a death grip. I extended my arms, lined up the sights on the center of the target. My first shot. Crack. The gun jumped in my hands, the way it always did. But I controlled the recoil. I took a breath, resighted. I couldn't see where the first shot landed from here. Not clearly. That was okay. This was about settling in. I could still sense them. I imagined them watching, waiting for me to fumble, to miss wildly, to prove their unspoken assumptions right. That thought, instead of making me more nervous, suddenly made me angry in a cold, clear way. It was like a switch flipped. Fine. You want a show? I'll give you a show. I decided then. 10 shots, 1 magazine. Make them count. I wasn't going to rush. I was going to take my time with each one. Second shot. Crack, breathe. Sight picture. Squeeze the trigger, don't jerk it. Third shot. Crack, my focus narrowed. The lane, the target, the front sight post. Everything else started to fade. Their voices, the other noises in the range, the slight tremor in my hands. It all just receded. Fourth shot. Crack! I found a rhythm. Extend, sight, breathe, squeeze. Eject brass. Extend, sight, breathe, squeeze. Fifth. Crack. Sixth. Crack. I was in the zone now, that quiet place where it's just you and the mechanics of the action, where your body knows what to do and your mind is clear and sharp. It's a good feeling, a powerful feeling. Seventh. Crack. Eighth. Crack. 2 more. I could feel the magazine getting lighter. Ninth. Crack. 1 last round. I took an extra breath for this one. Pictured that little black circle in the center of the target. Lined up the sights perfectly. Let the breath out slowly, and as I reached the natural pause, I squeezed. 10th. Crack. The slide locked back on the empty magazine. Silence. Well, not complete silence. There were still other shooters further down the line, but from behind me, where the 3 men had been holding court, nothing. Just a thick, heavy quiet. I lowered my pistol, finger off the trigger, safety on. I put the gun down on the little shelf in my booth. My ears were ringing faintly, even with the protectors. My hands felt steady now. My heart was still beating a little fast, but it was a good, strong beat. I pressed the button to retrieve my target. The carrier whirred, bringing it slowly back towards me. And as it got closer, I started to see the holes, not just on the paper, but clustered, tightly. Most of them were in the 9 and 10 rings. A couple in the 8. One, maybe my first shot, was a little wider, in the 7. But overall, it was a damn good group. One of my best, actually. I unclipped the target, held it up for a second, just looking at it. A small, private smile touched my lips. It wasn't a smirk, not a gloating thing. It was just satisfaction. Pure and simple. I did that. Me. Sarah. I turned, target in hand, ready to walk back and get a fresh one. And there they were, the 3 men. No longer laughing. No longer smirking. They were just standing there, watching me. Their mouths were closed. Their eyes were wide. The biggest one, the one who'd snorted, his jaw was actually a little slack. No one said a word as I walked past them. The air was thick with unspoken things. Surprise. Maybe a little bit of shock. Perhaps if I was lucky, a tiny sliver of respect. Or maybe just the dawning realization that they'd made fools of themselves. I didn't look at them directly. I just kept my head up, my gaze straight ahead. I got my new target, paid for it, and went back to my lane. As I was setting up again, I heard one of them mutter something to the others, low and indistinct. Then footsteps. They were leaving. They didn't even shoot. Just packed up their gear and walked out, a lot quieter than they'd come in. I spent another hour at the range, practiced some drills, emptied a couple more boxes of ammo. And you. Know what? No one bothered me. No one gave me a second glance other than the usual polite nods. It was just normal. When I finally packed up, feeling that good kind of tired you get after concentrating hard, the young guy behind the counter actually met my eye. "Have a good day, ma'am," he said, and it sounded genuine. "You too," I replied, and I meant it. Walking out into the afternoon sun, I felt lighter. Not just because my range bag was emptier, but because that knot of frustration and anger inside me had loosened, just a little. It wasn't about showing off. It wasn't about being better than anyone. It was about not letting their prejudice, their small-mindedness shrink me. It was about standing my ground quietly and letting my actions speak. 10 little holes in a piece of paper. That's all it took. And yeah, it felt pretty damn good. Not because I'd beaten them, but because I'd stayed true to myself. I'd come to do something, and I'd done it well. And in that moment, in that small, loud, often unwelcoming space, I had belonged. Not because they decided I did, but because I knew I did. And sometimes, that's all the victory you need.